Hey you guys, it's Peter and welcome to my channel. Peter Likes Books. And I am back for another book vlog. Are you so excited? I'm pulling out of Starbucks right now. I was actually going to see if they had, well, I did a review video for my review channel of Starbucks, but then I was actually going to see if they had more of the Pride cups because I wanted to give away either the color changing cups or the rainbow Pride cup or the confetti cup. So I was gonna do that in a giveaway on my other channel. So I had to come inside, but they didn't have any of those. So anyway, I'm here and I am for another vlog. And today I wanna talk about, I was trying to figure out what to talk about today. And where's my new lip balm that somebody sent me? I wanna talk about, there's my lip gloss. We'll put that on in a second because my lip gloss is popping. This is really turning into a vlog because I put my lip balms on late at night. If you like these, go watch my vlogs. They're very similar. Anyway, I was kind of thinking about a topic to talk about today, and I was like, you know what? Why don't I talk about rereads, you know? Because for me, I'm not somebody... First of all, can I just say on the last video about J.K. Rowling, I really appreciate the conversation in the comment section. I just, like for me, reading everybody's comments, it was very interesting. And it, you know, it was like one comment was here and then the very next comment was there and the comments went back and forth. So I was, you know, it was interesting conversation in the comment section. So thank you guys for participating in that and being kind to one another, you know, and not ripping each other apart because you have difference of opinions, you know. I really appreciate that. So anyway, I wanted to talk about rereading a book because I'm not somebody that is big on rereading a book, you know. Like there's a couple books in my life that I have reread through the years, like several different times. And oh my god, on the 80s at 80s on 8 Station, they're playing Berlin, Take My Breath Away, which is one of my all-time favorite songs. But anyway, I'm not somebody that's big on rereading books. Now, I do have a couple books that I reread from time to time. One is To Kill a Mockingbird by Harper Lee, and the other one is Catcher in the Rye by J.D. Salinger. Okay, so the last time that I listened, and then the other book that I have reread recently is She's Come Undone by Wally Lamb, and that was for the book club. So when I first started the True Crime Book Club, but before that it was just called Peter's Book Club, and the first year was dedicated to just like pop culture reads, and we read everything, and a lot of them were books that I was rereading. Like My Sweet Audrina by V.C. Andrews, because I loved V.C. Andrews when I was in high school, and She's Come Undone by Wally Lamb. There were some other books in there that were part of that. And I think that year as well was when I reread To Kill a Mockingbird for what I believe will be the final and last time. And I actually listened to it on Audible because it was Sissy Spacek that was reading it, and I really like Sissy Spacek, so I wanted to hear her spin of To Kill a Mockingbird. But for me, part of the problem is that To Kill a Mockingbird, the book, To Kill a Mockingbird, the book, and To Kill a Mockingbird, the movie, are two completely different experiences, I believe. And, you know, the book has so many characters and storylines that you never even, that aren't even in the movie. They don't even make it to the movie. And then, you know, like, to me, the nuances of Mary Badham, who plays Jean Louise Scout, she played her in the movie, and she actually, I just watched all these interviews with her. I do it like every couple years because I just love how I just love her essence. And she goes and she speaks to schools about To Kill a Mockingbird today, and I was just watching all these interviews with her. But, you know, the way that she brings alive the character of Scout, and, you know, and then the characters of Jim and, you know, Dill and, you know, Gregory Peck as, you know, Atticus Finch. To me, Gregory Peck always will be Atticus Finch. There is no other Atticus Finch to me. So that is one book that I like the movie more. There's several books that I like the movie more, actually, but that's one of probably the main ones, which people always find interesting. But I think the book sometimes runs a little dry. I think it's a difficult book for, I think I read it for the first time when I was like in 6th or 7th grade, and I think it's a difficult book to read. I've seen the play, The play is very similar to the movie. What's the guy's name? I can't think of his name. He's a famous playwright. Oh shoot. Well, I think it starts with an H. But anyway, when I read the book the last time, listened to it with Sissy Spacek, she did this weird thing where I'm like, okay, here's Sissy Spacek. She's from the South. She loves this book. She already said that. And she's doing this rereading of it. And like, lines that are in the book that are also in the movie, and if you've seen the movie a million times, you know how they sound. She like took them and spun them in a different way, and it made the book like annoying to read. It was like, I don't like she's trying to like make it her own or something, which that's totally fine, I guess, as a narrator. But at the same time, it just bothered me so much that I just didn't enjoy it. And I didn't like the experience of rereading To Kill a Mockingbird. And you know what I thought at that time? And I did a whole video about it. I thought to myself, if I never reread this book again in my life, I'll be completely fine. Like, I know the story. I know the movies. It actually was something that connected my mother and I in a way. I think it's time for me to go on and maybe have some other favorite books. In the summer, or the spring, I read Delia Owens' Where the Crawdads Sing, and I just was blown away and loved it. And I was like, okay, so here, because this is a new favorite. It absolutely is a new favorite. I know people are like, it gets a little prosy in areas, it carries on. I know that. Mel, my book club partner, she hated it, right? But it was just beautiful to me. It was just absolutely beautiful. And so that's one of the books that I reread over again. Another one is Catcher in the Rye by J.D. Salinger. And interestingly enough, my favorites that I reread were also my favorites that my mother reread. And I almost kind of wonder if my connection to these books is not the books themselves, but my mother. The last time that I tried to read it was a Buddy Reads. And we were going to read all of J.D. Salinger's works in a month. And I think it was like in October or November. And this was like 3 years ago. And I just could not get through it. I don't know what it was. It was so depressing. It was so sad. It felt very trite to me, like, looking back. Like, I never felt before reading the book that Holden Caulfield was a phony. And then reading the book, in retrospect, what I felt like was, this could be a whole video on its own, but I felt like part of the reason why Holden Caulfield hated himself so much was because he was a phony. And I had never seen it that way before. I felt like there was such inner self-hatred of himself in the world. And I think he knew that he was a phony, you know? And it's like, I don't know. There was just something, I think that's why he, like, was so, like, when he goes to the fields, you know, he's talking about the actual catcher in the fields, you know, he's talking about Phoebe, his sister, and I think he's like, loves her innocence, right? Because that's before people get jaded and they become phony. We did read for the book club, we read Franny and Zooey, which I think I had read half of it, but maybe not the other half, or I don't know when I was growing up, but I absolutely loved. Now, Zooey I didn't love as much, but Franny, I loved that part of the book, but yet again, depressing. But not this need to be phony. Like, Franny's story is just so tragically relatable to that age, I think, of so many people, and myself as well, just, well, parts of it, not the whole thing, but, so, you know, it's like, some of these books that I reread, and I go back, you know, and I look at, I just think to myself, do I have this need to reread these books? Like, I know, I see people on BookTube, and I, like, hey, do your thing if you love it, but they're like, this is my 18th time reading this book, or this is my, you know, like, I read this book every year. My mother read Catcher in the Rye every year in the fall. She would read it every year. You know, and for a long time, I read, you know, To Kill a Mockingbird. And I was just talking the other day in the video that I'd like to maybe, like, reread some of those books, like Sun Also Rises, or The Garden of Eden, or Fitzgerald's, why can I never remember the book, the Fitzgerald book, that's like Sun Also Rises? But anyway, some of those books from, you know, that era that I read, that kind of expatriate era of, like, you know, the 40s. Interestingly enough, I loved this book by F. Scott Fitzgerald, but I did not like, I'm not a Gatsby fan. I did not like The Great Gatsby. I didn't like the movie, really. I liked the music in the movie. I didn't like the movie. I didn't really love the story. And it's just a sad book. Well, I mean, all of his books are, you know, to some degree. But, and studied it in classes and still did not love it. I want to see what the Fitzgerald book is that I'm thinking of, because it's driving me crazy and I keep on thinking about it. F. Scott Fitzgerald books. Okay. As soon as I see it, I'm gonna be like, Tinder tonight. Which they say is a lot about him and Zelda. But that, okay, so, you know, then there's, for the book club the first year, we read She's Come Undone by Wally Lamb. I read that book in 3 days in Cancun, Mexico with my dad and my stepmom years and years and years ago, and it profoundly impacted me, right? So I reread it this time, and for the book club, and I mean, it really affected me. But it's such a weird book, because, like, if you read it in your 20s, because it's a book that spans this girl's entire life. So, from the time that she's, like, 5 until the time that she's, like, my age now, like 45, 50, right? I think. And so, she goes through all these changes. And the book is really about grief and loss. So at the time that I read it, when I was newly sober, like a couple years sober, like, I understand why I so related to the book as, like, this idea of new change. But then reading it down the road, having suffered so much loss in my life, looking back on it, it really resonated with me in an entirely different way. But I had forgotten the story, a lot of it, so it was like reading a new book to me, and I bawled my eyes out, and I loved it. Do I feel like in 5 years I'm going to need to read that book again? No. I don't feel like I need to experience those characters in that book again. I just don't, you know? I reread this summer, or this spring, Jill McCorkle's Ferris Beach, because it is one of my favorite books of life. It didn't have the same effect on me this time that it had the last time, and I don't know why, you know? And there's many books like that My Sweet Audrina by V.C. Andrews, I thought it was crap. I just did not enjoy it, you know? Oh my God. Okay, well, this is for Mel. So for the book club that first year, I picked Endless Night by Richard Lehman. I remember the first time that I read that book, and it was in my old apartment, and I literally had to, like, lock the door and put a chair up against the door at night. I was so terrified of it, right? But this time, I mean, it was probably, I mean, nobody liked that book in the book club. There might have been, like, 1 or 2 people that liked it, but it was just, like, horrible. I reread it, and I thought, what were you thinking that you loved this book? So I do think it very much, you know, has to be a certain time that you're reading a book, or, you know, whatever. But, like, to revisit these books later in life is interesting, isn't it? These books that we think that so profoundly affected us. Or maybe it was just that time in our lives that they affected us. Do you know what I mean? Maybe if our circumstances have been different, or we didn't come across that book at a certain point, you know? Or maybe they tie us with our relationship to somebody else that loved that book as well. But, you know, maybe down the road, that relationship is gone, or it's different. And so we don't have the same connection to that book that we had before. I'm trying to think of other books that I've reread. Well, you know, like Christmas Carol. I watch the movie every year. I love it. And I reread it a couple years ago, because I read all these Christmas books, and I did not, it was good, but, you know, it didn't have the same impact on me. And maybe it's because I've, like, gone there before. I can't really think of a book other than She's Come Undone, and I think that's because that book is so specific in the way that you read it, that it affects you one way when you're younger and one way when you're older, and it had been literally almost 20 years or something since I read the book. But, you know, there aren't many books that I think that, for me, when I reread them, this is why I don't love rereading books. I don't have the same aha moment experience the second time around. I just don't. So I don't enjoy reading them, therefore why do it? You know what I mean? Like, why put myself, I don't know. Is there a book that you guys love to reread over and over and over again? I see booktubers, book bloggers, and, you know, bookstagrammers all the time talk about their favorite rereads, and it's their favorite book of life, and they copy, like, you know, they collect, like, 8 versions of it, and, you know, all that kind of stuff. I think, like, the one thing I would say, this is where it sucks getting older, and if you're younger, please do not let my cynicism of age jade you. But you do fall out of love with books over time. You know, you do. You don't have the same relationship with them that you had once in your life. You do fall out of love with them. And, you know, books that you will love when you're 16 and 18 and 20 and 22 are not going to be the books that you love when you're older, the books that, many of them, maybe a few, I hope for you, because for me, the books of my youth are not the books of my life. I thought they were, and I think that's the saddest part to me, is that a lot of these books are books that really shaped me, but in reality, To Kill a Mockingbird, the movie probably shaped me more than the book did, because I so, like, loved the characters, and the music is, like, what's really powerful to me in the movie as well, you know? And the memories of watching it with my mom. So, I don't know. Like, it's interesting to me, the idea of rereading books. And I don't want to jade anybody, you know, but I can remember being younger and being like, I could reread this book 1,000 times. You know, I reread recently, for my Peterisms channel, the Celestine Prophecy, by James Redfield, because when I first got sober, right after I got out of treatment, I told this story, like, at length on that channel and on my Peterisms vlog, or my Peter Vlogs channel. But when I got out of treatment, somebody recommended that book to me, or I got that book or whatever, and I read it, like, right after I got out of treatment, and it had this, like, profound, I mean profound effect on me. Like, I was like, I gotta get my, more than treatment, more than anything, reading that book was like, I gotta get my priorities straight, I gotta get my life together now. And I can remember, I read the book literally in 24 hours. I stayed up all night long, I drank coffee, I called my friend. The next day, there's a whole story about it. But anyway, if you want to hear the story, let me know how a book changed my life. I'll do that. That vlog will be my next vlog if you want to hear about it. But, you know, I reread it this year for the Peterisms channel. And it was a good read. I didn't really remember some of it. But, like, I looked back on it and thought, why this book? Like, what was it about this book? Because I didn't have any of those reactions or responses this time reading it. I was like, why this book made me feel this way, you know? So, I don't know. And then I think there's a lot of books that, like, I want to share. I'm big on giving my books away right now because I have a lot of books that I don't have a desire to keep with me for the rest of my life. You know, there was a period where I was like, I'll never give these books away. And as you move throughout your life, what you realize is you just box up the same books and move them from place to place and just look at them sitting in your bookshelves. And I love books on bookshelves, I do, you know? But I guess as I get older, I'd rather have maybe like one bookshelf of my favorite books, which I do. It's my top left-hand corner up there. You know, that has like The Hate You Give and Dumplin' and my book and my recovery books and things like that. But, you know, as I get older, I guess I would like to have my bookshelves filled with books that I haven't yet read and give away the books that have had an impact on me. I don't have a need or necessity to hold on to these books for the rest of my life. I love bookshelves. I mean, if it was up to me and I knew I was never going to move again and I had 15 bookshelves, hell, I'd just keep them full. Probably wouldn't give them away. I mean, I'm not that much of a saint. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying I don't have a need to sit there and just, you know, have them filling my bookshelves anymore, you know, because I probably am not going to reread most of these books again. And today I look at it as like, there's so many books out there that I can read. Why would I reread the same books over and over and over again, you know, when there's so many new series or characters or worlds or lessons to, you know, have? Why continue to reread the same books? But I've kind of always felt that way. But I think because of my recent experience rereading books and having like no effect, you know, after reading it, being like, just kind of like, meh, you know what I mean? Like, I think that I even feel stronger about that now. So anyway, let me know what you think about rereading books. If you love rereading, Tanya loves to reread books. You know, let me know what you think in the comment section below. And like I said, thank you for the conversations you guys are having. There were so many comments and I really appreciated it. And yeah, and if you'd like to hear my story to the Celestine Prophecy, put that in the comment section below too. Or if you have topics that you'd like to hear me vlog and drive and talk about, I would love that as well. So anyway, I will see you guys tomorrow. Bye. Love ya.